Hello and welcome to Swipe. Coming up, smartphone security. How protected are you from cyber hackers? Apple brings out 2 new iPads, but do they still lead the way in innovation? Facebook's row with the Prime Minister over violent videos. And happy Halloween. We check out a few of this week's spooky gaming releases. Internet security affects pretty much everyone on the planet, from online banking through to sending a simple email. But when it comes to using our smartphones or Android devices out in public, just how protected are we? Sky's Katie Spencer has been finding out.
Connecting on the go is something we often take for granted. But just how safe are our smartphones when we use them on the move? IT specialist Edward Woodcock has always been very conscious about security, but thieves still managed to take control of his bank's mobile app and get an access code to take money out at an ATM.
Somehow somebody had gained access to this mechanism and was repeatedly taking a series of cash over and over again. What had happened, I think, is somehow they'd managed to change the email address.
Part of the problem can be that many of the key accounts we use are daisy-chained together. An Amazon account could link to an Apple ID, which might help hackers get an email password. And if they can do that, they can try to reset your security and take control of your digital life. If you're connecting to free Wi-Fi in a public place, some experts say you could be leaving yourself worryingly exposed.
You can see the email being used.
On unprotected networks, it's possible that traffic sent between your mobile device and that router can potentially be visible.
All they need is a laptop like this one. There's hacking software that runs on certain mobile phones, and they can just sit there and watch all the traffic pass between you and the internet and pick out very easily your passwords and your usernames and so on, and then take those and take over your accounts effectively.
The average cost of cybercrime per victim has decreased from £144 last year to £101 this year, according to one recent survey. But that doesn't necessarily mean tackling the problem has got any better. Given how crowded our lives online are becoming, some experts believe that criminals are now opting to steal smaller amounts because, crucially, we're less likely to notice.
If they get 2 fields of your data, maybe an address, maybe a birth date, preferably a password, they could do horrible things with that. More likely, though, they're actually selling those on.
Taking some basic precautions can make all the difference, like opting in for a 2-step authentication on an email account, clearing browser histories and being more careful about the apps we download.
It's made me aware that when I thought that the security measures I put in place are unhackable, I can still be hacked.
Smartphones may have made it easier for us to quickly connect on the go, but understanding the risks of what we're downloading and where we connect is crucial when it comes to protecting ourselves from the hackers. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
You're watching Swipe. Coming up, Hollywood star Ellen Page gives us the gossip on her move into the world of gaming. But first, it's that time of year again when Apple decides to launch new products, and this time it was a new iPad, or to be precise, 2 new iPads. Sky's Joe Tidy went along to the UK launch to ask the experts.
Well, an Apple event wouldn't be an Apple event without the rumour mill running for weeks and months beforehand, trying to guess what Apple will announce. And I think in many ways, the rumour mill might be a little bit disappointed today. We've had 2 products unveiled. The new iPad, which is this one here, very thin. They're calling it the iPad Air, and also a new iPad Mini. But we didn't hear anything about the new Technicolor versions of the machines, or indeed the iWatch, which is also rumoured to be discussed. But we can find out a little bit more about these products.
The iPad has always been about a premium piece of hardware and integrated software, and they're sticking to that. So these products are being offered at the same price they were last year. The previous generation is still around, but slightly cheaper if that's what you want. But I think fundamentally, Apple's strategy is the same as it was, which is just keep making good stuff and iterate very slowly, which is frustrating for the press, but maybe good for consumers.
What I find fascinating is that there doesn't seem to be any breakout sort of wow gadget sort of gizmodo moment in there, which is sort of the sense of it's got a fingerprint scanner, I can demo to my mates or whatever. And I think when people do get it and they'll take it home, they'll be keen to show it off to their friends, but then they'll be not sure which bit they're supposed to show off.
You're watching Swipe. Coming up, Facebook's row with the Prime Minister over violent videos. But first, She's perhaps best known for her roles in Juno and Inception, but now indie actress Ellen Page has moved into gaming, taking on the lead role in the PS3 title Beyond Two Souls. She plays Jodie Holmes, a young woman with supernatural powers. So, how was it making the leap? Sky's Chloe Culpin's been finding out.
Ellen Page is used to wearing costumes when she's acting, but nothing quite like this. The 26-year-old, best known for her roles in Hollywood blockbusters such as Inception, Juno and X-Men, has made the jump from film to video games in the new PlayStation 3 title, Beyond Two Souls.
So obviously some people make films with motion capture, of course, like Avatar, Lord of the Rings or what have you, but I'd never done anything like that. So that was a huge difference for me, but an incredible one. I'm so used to playing to one camera, and to be in an environment where you're surrounded by 70 cameras and you can do what you want.
The performance capture cameras recognise the movements in the little balls attached to her bodysuit and her face. They track and record exactly what she does, even her facial expressions, which allows for very real-looking characters. Ellen believes this sort of game is the way forward.
It's newer than filmmaking, and now that the technology is advancing, certain people want to tell stories or to use it to tell stories that are maybe emotionally more complex.
The game leaps back and forth over 15 years in the life of a young woman who's connected with some sort of supernatural being. Players control both her character and the ghost-like entity. She says the acting range required was a challenge.
For me, the span of 8 years of someone's life. So yeah, one morning you're 14 at a party and exploring the awkwardness of that, and then 5 minutes later, you're shooting a scene in Somalia where you're running for your life.
The game's been criticised for its cinematic approach and limited control of the character, but its creators say both are intentional. Chloe Culpin, Sky News.
You're watching Swipe. Coming up, prepare to be scared in our Halloween-themed games review. But first, here's a roundup of anything you might have missed over the last few days. Well, it's been a difficult week for Facebook, which has had to add warnings to violent videos after being criticised by the Prime Minister. In May, the social media giant banned users from posting videos showing things like beheadings, but then they changed their mind. The reason? They think people should be free to condemn the videos. However, David Cameron called for an explanation, so now they've agreed to add warnings, but anything that glorifies violence will be removed. The tablet wars have kicked off again, and Microsoft have come to the front line with their Surface 2 and Surface Pro 2. Compared to the old Surface, the tablets are an improvement, but so far the response from the tech world has been lukewarm. The Surface 2 has a better battery life than its predecessor and solid hardware, but apps are still in short supply compared to its competitors. Nokia has also had a big week and launched 2 new phones and their first ever tablet. The Lumia 1520 and 1320, technically phablets, both have huge 6-inch screens, but the 1320 costs less and its camera isn't quite as good. The Lumia 2520 is Nokia's not-so-imaginative name for their tablet. It runs Windows 8.1, has a 10.1-inch screen and a 4G data chip, something Microsoft's Surface 2 doesn't have. If you're a nerdy tech fan like myself, you'll be wondering why we don't all have our own robots by now. Well, there's a simple answer. Most of the cool ones cost millions. But for just £21,000, take a look at this little guy. A company called Unbound Robotics has been working on bringing the costs down so that more businesses and research institutions can have the technology to work with. What about journalists, though? Any donations of 21 grand will be gratefully received. Fat chance. Halloween is here, and although we don't want to scare you too much, we thought we'd take a look at a few games that might get you in a spooky mood. Our man in the know, Guy Cocker, has been taking a look at some of this week's big releases.
Papa Sangre 2 is a Halloween-themed game that's being released on Halloween for iOS, so iPhone and iPad devices. You have to wear headphones because it's very audio-focused. And you start the game, and Sean Bean tells you you're dead. And he's giving you all these really interesting quotes about how all your life is imagined, and you've got to see life through this device, through your iPhone, which is what I was using. And he'll then give you instructions and clues, and you'll have to move and find the clues and dig them up. If you're into new novel games that aren't just shooting zombies or doing the usual stuff, then this will really do it for you. It's out on Halloween. I think it's going to cost about £2, and I found it really, really interesting. Batman Arkham Origins is the third game in this series, which has done really, really well both critically and commercially, and rightly so, because it's a fantastic series. It's a younger Batman. He's a little bit more foolish and a bit more rude. He's less intelligent than he was in the previous games, but that means he's a bit more rough and ready, and that's the interesting part from the character's standpoint. The game itself doesn't do a lot new with the Batman Arkham series. I mean, the combat and the puzzle solving very similar to previous games. That said, it's a cliche to say it, but if you love that, then it's all present in this game. I really, really like the Batman series, so this really, really did it for me. Deus Ex Human Revolution came out in 2011, and it was really one of the most influential games of the last few years. It was a great game, very sort of Blade Runner sci-fi experience. And this is the director's cut, which is coming out on PC, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, like the original game, but it's also coming to Wii U for the first time, which is the device that I played it on. The director's cut does a number of things. It provides a director's commentary, so you can play the game as you would maybe if you were watching a film DVD and hear what the developers were doing, and they'll talk over it and their intended actions. If you're interested in the making of video games, it's really, really interesting. It lasts about 8 hours though, so it's quite long. It's not worth playing, I don't think, if you played through the original, but it's worth mentioning that the director's cut is launching at a budget price. So if you somehow missed it, or you're a Wii U owner and you missed it completely, it's definitely worth checking out. So Phoenix Wright on the 3DS, this is Dual Destinies, this is what it's called. It's been a long time coming to the 3DS.
These are dark times, where the law has been reduced to rubble, and it's up to us to restore it to its former glory.
So the idea is that you play as a couple of lawyers in the courtroom, and you're under the tutelage of Phoenix Wright, and who's this expert lawyer, and you have to pick apart the case of the other party. You listen to the various the cases as they're being heard, and then you visit the crime scene to find evidence that contradicts what's being said. So you have to be on top of your legal professional terms, and you get to shout things like objection, which is really, really cool, and then present this evidence, and then watch as the person on trial is sweating. It's very, very funny. It's it's quite challenging as well. So you've got to be really on the ball when you're playing this game.
Well, that's your lot for this week. Remember, you can catch up with the breaking tech stories all week on Sky News for iPad, our smartphone apps, and skynews.com. We'll see you next time.